So I want to go over their irrational thoughts and worries. Their newest irrational thought and worry is that I'm going to worry about people coming to get me. Didn't they already come and get me? So I don't understand how I would worry about something that already happened. The other thing that is a big deal for them is they keep trying to say that they can force people who aren't my relatives to be my relatives. There's no such thing. There's no such thing as that. I mean, I'm wondering why they would worry about that. The only thing I can think of that would mean what it would mean for them is because this is part of the program. See, part of this program, and I'll call it a program just because I call it a system sometimes, program, just because it's easier to explain, is that you have to have people around you involved. So, since no one in my life, directly in my life, is involved with them, and that's a reflection on them. The people in my life don't want them, and I think it's hard for them to accept that. So they keep saying that they're going to have someone move in with me. That's illegal. You can't do that. So part of what this program was supposed to be is people in your life are supposed to get involved in doing this to you. People in my life didn't. And I'm glad, there's something about what they're saying that in some way is such a compliment to the people who didn't get involved that they don't understand it. They think it's a compliment to me. Like they just says something along the lines like I was going to say like how wonderful I am for not being involved with people like that. Well, thank you, but it's more of a compliment to the people not involved than it is to how wonderful I am. If they think I'm wonderful after all this. Earlier today, they again tried to say that I did something sexually inappropriate to a child when they said I was 13 or 14. That never happened. Partly what again is irrational is if you're going to claim these things and you would have to do it legally. Secondly, you wouldn't want me around. You can't start out like, "Oh, you're my best friend and you're involved in this program so that you can say how I was, and then say something irrational like you witnessed me do something inappropriate to a child. Then what were you doing? What were you doing when this was happening? Again, there's so many lies that they tell, and I think they tell themselves these lies more than anyone else. The next irrational thought and irrational worry is that I'm going to feel about these things the way they would feel. That's the big deal. This whole program is based on them trying to read my thoughts and read my body language and then hurry up and say things before I can say it. It's insanity. It's insane. The next irrational thought, you notice there are a lot of them, is that they can force me to be with people I don't want to be with. This is a free country. For now, it's a free country. No one can force themselves on you. You can't force people to make you live with them. You can't force people to make you move. You can't force people to do anything. It's a free country. So just on that, I want to stay on that topic for a bit. They was talking earlier about how I did okay in school and how they didn't want me to acknowledge that. Something in them is, you know, it's not genuine. And I think that's another problem with their way of coming up with this synthetic telepathy. If you genuinely do well, like I watch shows and people who have done well, I'm proud of them. I'm like, yeah, say you've done well. Wouldn't you hate it if someone who's like, and we know this, like my generation knows this because we kind of saw this more probably than the younger generation, where someone who's like fabulous is like, oh, I don't know, I'm not that great. No, you're fabulous, okay? Admit you're fabulous. So I think my generation, we learned, like, unlike them, they said that my mother didn't raise me the right way. I'm glad my mother raised me and the other people in my life raised me to not be like, oh, I wasn't so great. So that it sounds like you're trying to get a compliment when you shouldn't be trying to get a compliment. When you're fabulous, you don't need a compliment. So partly what they don't like about me is that if I do something well, I'm like, oh, I did this really well. if I don't do something well, I'm like, I didn't do that very well. So it's not fishing for compliments. So they lie and say that I fish for compliments. If I have fished for compliments, then I wasn't getting any compliments from these people, because I don't usually fish for compliments. If I do something well, I did it. If I don't do something well, I didn't do it well. And again, if was fishing for compliments from these people, then they wouldn't say I was bragging or boasting about something. You know what I mean? Like, I am just going based on what they're saying. If they're saying that I'm bragging, how could I have been fishing for compliments at the same time? It's irrational. Nothing they say makes sense when you put it together. The other big deal about this is that when, I'm I'm talking to you folks about these things, and then they're arguing with it, and then they try to twist it and say that that was their idea, who came up with this idea first. It's the idea that just because you're first, you're best. No. I mean, again, my generation knows the first of some things doesn't necessarily mean you're best. And that's part of their mindset. They said, oh, that reminds them of something. Meaning they always, I said this in a previous video, so that's probably what it reminds them of. They always think that the first person to do something does it the best. Not necessarily. Just because you're first, you're number one, I guess, doesn't mean you are the best. Someone can come behind you and do it better. So trying to always be first at something doesn't really give you anything other than you were the first one. And sometimes you don't want to be the first one. So what I'm saying is that a lot of what they worry about or what they think, it's not what I'm thinking at all. They said this was supposed to be a program where they could kind of, before I say or do something, say or do it. Be first. I don't care if they're first. If it's the right thing to say or do, then I'm going to say or do it. They said they're going to come up with a way of punishing me. Then punish me. Do what you have to do. And partly what this is showing is they're upset because even though I'm black, people have mistaken me for other races. And they're upset by that. What difference does it make? Why does it matter? They said their black people are never mistaken for a different race. Who are your black people? Who are your black people? I know of many black people who can pass for different races. So who are these black people? I don't know. But in New York, you can look at someone who is black and say, boy, that person's black, and that person might not be black. Or that person might be black and something else. Or that person may be black and something else and identify as something else. We in New York come in all shapes, colors, sizes, everything. You can never assume in New York. And that's another thing that I wouldn't want to be raised by these people. They say, like, the things I say things they said. For example, I said a guy in a wheelchair had to get on the bus, and I said, oh, he has to get on this bus. And they're like, oh, you're not supposed to say have to. But then they said, no, sometimes we say need to. Where they're from, they wouldn't get along with us. And I think that could be another thing. They're probably from someplace else. When we say something, we'll say, oh, this person has to get on this bus, or oh, I have to get on this bus, or I have to take this bus, or you have to take this bus. We say have. We don't always say need. We're like, oh, he has to get on. Okay, he's getting on this bus. We say have to